Hey guys, welcome back to Divergent States, the unofficial Psychonaut podcast. I'm Elite, host and founder of the Psychonaut subreddit, and back again with Brian.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing?
Oh, doing great. How are you?
I'm not bad. I got to have somebody here keep me grounded. So tonight we got Josh White. He's the CEO and founder of the Fireside Project, nonprofit organization that's pioneering psychedelic care through two main services, free psychedelic support line and Fireside certified psychedelic coaching support line. They provide free, confidential emotional support by phone, text, or app to people during and after psychedelic experiences. They do coaching programs where they offer scheduled one-on-one video sessions with coaches who support clients through preparation and integration of your psychedelic experiences, which is a huge part of the, getting everything is integration when you're kind of done.
Right.
And then founded in 2020, Fireside Project has supported over 30,000 people while maintaining high standards of care through an extensive practitioner training and clinical supervision. The organization is committed to creating a beloved psychedelic community where people of all identities are welcome, working to make psychedelic support services accessible and culturally responsive, and safety-focused through harm reduction. Fireside Project has received national media attention with Rolling Stones, Forbes, Esquire, Mashable, and more. So today we're here with Josh. He's the Fireside Project's founder, lawyer, and peer support activist, and he's a coach on there. So the music tonight's Flintwick again, and
that's right.
I think next week we're gonna be doing a best of. Might have somebody on special on, and you guys don't forget to support us. Patreon.com, Divergent States. Mm-hmm. And we'll listen to some music, and we'll be back on with Josh.
Yeah, let's do it.
And we'll have Joshua White here. Thanks, Josh, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. So just, can you tell us anything about your journey and how you got here, and what got you to start the Fireside program?
Sure. Well, I've been taking psychedelics for about 25 years. And for me, I was always very fortunate to have amazing people around me to support me during and after the experience. And I really started to develop the belief that the support is just really critical, the support beforehand and during and after. And so I was practicing law for many years and was so kind of taken with the healing potential of my psychedelic experiences that I decided to leave my career as a lawyer to start Fireside Project. I did that about 4 years ago, and the belief really was that for psychedelics to reach their full healing potential, everyone in the United States and eventually everyone in the world should get free access to support when they're navigating psychedelic experiences.
Was there any kind of like specific moment that you really just kind of brought it together where you're like, this is how I want to do it, this is what I want to do?
I think there were two moments. One was when I was volunteering for the Zendo Project, and I remember supporting someone at Lightning in a Bottle. This was probably 10 years ago. And I remember just being so deeply struck by how profoundly alone and terrified she was when she came into the Zendo tent. And then just by creating a safe, non-judgmental space for her, she ended up having what seemed like an incredibly like transformational and healing experience. And the other was I spent many years volunteering on a support line in San Francisco for parents with young kids. And the mission of that support line is to stop child abuse. And one of the things that made that support line unique was at the end of every incoming call, we would offer a follow-up call. And so I spoke to some of my clients weekly for, in some cases, for a few years. And I had one client tell me, and he was someone who I'd been speaking to weekly for about 3 years. And he said to me, I don't know whether I've been given a gift or whether it's been there all along, but I feel like I've unwrapped it. And I, I must have started crying when he said that, and it just really showed me that support lines are so powerful. They're free and they're everywhere, and they're accessible to everyone. And so Fireside Project is really a fusion of these kind of two loves of mine, providing psychedelic support and the role that support lines can play.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that, time and time again. People come into the tents, or they're freaking out a little bit, and I mean, it always helps to have that excuse me, that guide or sitter there to talk about. Is there any any of your personal philosophies that really kind of get into what you do there with the Fireside Project?
My personal philosophy. Let me think. I mean, I believe that psychedelics have the potential to create a more like loving and interconnected world. And I think for me, Fireside is really how a key part of how that vision can be brought about. And I think often of like, why is it that we have the capacity to have psychedelic experiences? Each part of our being has a very specific evolutionary purpose, like the hair on our face, our fingernails. And so, what is the evolutionary purpose? What is the reason why we developed the capacity to have psychedelic experiences? And I think about my own psychedelic experiences. I think they made me a more loving person. I think they helped me heal from childhood trauma. So I guess my personal philosophy is that we can create a more loving and interconnected world through psychedelics, and but that can really only happen if everyone has access to support.
Absolutely. Of course, yeah, and including the inclusion and just, making sure everyone has that support when it's needed. That's a really super important part of any kind of, and the integration as well, kind of taking these experiences and being able to integrate them into your, personal life. So for those that might not know, how would you describe the mission of the Fireside Project? Why a support line specifically?
Yeah, so our mission is to help people minimize the risks of psychedelic experiences in ways such as providing culturally attuned peer support, furthering psychedelic research, and helping to train aspiring practitioners. And when I was really thinking about at the start of the pandemic, what type of nonprofit I wanted to create for the psychedelic field, I kind of asked myself, what are the biggest problems that the field is facing? And it really seemed to me like there were four, and still are four. One is just a lack of accessible support. Another is a lack of diversity in the psychedelic field, primarily as a result of the war on drugs. The third is a lack of data. Really not understanding why psychedelics work and for whom and under what circumstances and what are the variables. And then the final is just a lack of experiential training for aspiring practitioners, right? The best way to develop your skills providing psychedelic support is to actually provide psychedelic support. And so it seemed to me that a support line could really be an engine that allows us to help solve all four of those problems. And that's really what we've seen over the last 3.5 years that the support line has been operating.
So, So could you walk me through, like, say what a normal call, if I were out and I'd taken a little too much, had a little bit too much too fast, how would it go? I mean, what would that be like?
Sure. Well, first, let me just say that, our support line supports people who are both integrating past experiences as well as in the midst of an experience. And so obviously, an integration call is going to be very different from a tripping call, but for tripping calls, really, as with integration calls, the goal is to just meet people where they're at and to create a really safe and non-judgmental space for them to experience whatever comes up. So we like to say that all emotions, all feelings are okay. So often a call when someone is in a really activated tripping state, can start with something like, "Wow, I hear you. I hear how scared you are. I hear how lonely you feel, and I'm happy to be here with you as long as you like." So that initial point of connection is so powerful. And then often what can happen next is, especially if someone is newer to psychedelics, they think that like something is wrong with their experience. Like they may be like, "Oh, is it normal to," or like, "I'm seeing all these, these shapes and colors. I feel like I'm going to go insane. I feel like this is never going to end." And just to be able to say like, "Yeah, that sounds really scary," and also that's totally normal for for where you are in your journey. I heard you say that you took 2 hits of acid a couple of hours ago, and so yeah, you're really like approaching the peak of your experience, and it's gonna end, and I'm happy to stay with you as long as you like. So often that's kind of the initial piece of it. um, we don't de-escalate people, right? Because I think de-escalation is a consequence of creating a non-judgmental and safe space. But there are many consequences. One might be that the person just feels more grounded and open and more curious about their experience. The reason I don't like the term de-escalation is because it sort of implies that like being in one state is bad and that we want to get someone to a different state, which is good. But in fact, the difficulty that arises during a psychedelic experience can actually be the most fruitful opportunity to learn about yourself. And one of the kind of like phrases that I really like, it's not my own, but the obstacle is the path, right? Like the difficulty isn't getting in the way of the healing journey or this kind of state of enlightenment, but the difficulty is the opportunity itself to learn and grow. And I think a key part of our role can really be to invite people into that awareness that the difficulty is really an opportunity.
I think that's really interesting that you say that, because I think of like, therapists in the past that have talked about like trying to stop yourself from having like an anxiety attack. It makes the anxiety attack worse because
Right.
you're trying to make this thing stop versus just embrace it. And
Yeah, I mean, as someone who has suffered from anxiety for so much of my life, some of the most terrifying experiences I've had, especially with like ayahuasca, was when I was just like in this storm of anxiety. But really, like that was a golden opportunity to really see for me, like, what is this anxiety that I've created? When did I create it? What's the purpose that my anxiety is serving? And in fact, what I learned during one of those experiences was that I had created anxiety as a way of protecting myself from something far worse, which was things that happened early in my childhood.
mm,
And so in that moment, in that series of moments, I was able to actually fall in love with my anxiety. Like, thank goodness my anxiety had come into existence to protect me.
yeah,
And so that allowed me to kind of, in a sense, fall in love with it. And I think that's really the pathway to letting it go, right?
yeah,
You can't push away your anxiety. You can only fall in love with it and thank it. And then over time, I think that part of you, to sort of use an IFS kind of way of framing it, that part of you can relax a little bit.
So would you say that was like, that would probably be one of your most common experiences, just a lot of anxiety or something along that?
My own experiences.
Well, when you get call-ins in the on the hotline,
Oh,
pretty common.
yeah, I think that yeah, definitely anxiety, feeling of being like really overwhelmed, feeling that this is never going to end, that the person is losing their mind, that something is wrong with them, powerful feelings of aloneness and disconnection. All of those are common, but we also get calls and texts from people who are just wanting to chat, so they may not be having a sort of challenging experience. They may just be facing something that they need to process with someone. And gosh, there's just such power in anonymity, especially during a psychedelic experience. There is a voice at the other end of the line, and that voice doesn't know who you are, and you don't know who that voice is, and you'll never meet in the outside world. And so that just really creates this like deep permission to say things that you may not feel comfortable enough to say to anyone, including your therapist. And by the way, I should say, a third of our callers mentioned to us in their post call survey that they have a therapist, and but they're reaching out to us nonetheless. That could be because they're tripping and they're not going to go to therapy tripping, but it could also just be because the nature of the psychedelic experience can be so just weird and outside the bounds of like Western psychotherapy, that people want to talk to someone who they know has tripped before and has had really like powerful tectonic psychedelic experiences.
Well, you mentioned like not talking to it, like they're talking to you probably because they're tripping in the moment. Um, but yeah, I, like kind of as you explain that, what I really thought of is like it's very non-judgmental, and
Right.
that's kind of like one of the hard parts. I remember the first time I took mushrooms, and I did not have a very good experience at all. And the people that helped me through that didn't try to like alter the state or whatever, get me from one state to another. They just kind of just talked to me and then helped me see, help me get to a more comfortable space where I felt really good. But I also remember that after the trip was over, I definitely had that sensation of like, oh God, I've told them everything.
Right. That vulnerability
Yeah, you
hangover kind of.
Yeah.
right. You kind of feel a little naked in front of everybody all the time. Like, oh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
it'd be kind of nice to just like get off the phone with somebody and be like, all right, that was great. And probably
Yeah,
never going to see that person.
totally. And honestly, like I think one of the things that some callers report is like feeling bad that they're taking up our time, or feeling bad that they're like kind of imposing upon us to support them. And sometimes it's hard to ask for help. And what I always say is like, gosh, the amount of gratitude that we feel at Fireside Project, that our volunteers feel when someone does reach out and we can support them, it's like a nuclear event, with regard to gratitude. Just it is. I mean, I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world to really be with someone in that state of just profound vulnerability, and to really just be with them for whatever arises, and then to really to bear witness to whatever healing or transformation or just weirdness is unfolding.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, that can be a good fun part of it too. Just somebody that you can kind of connect with, and just that's in the same headspace as you at that time. Oh,
Right, right.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
a
And, like one of the questions that we get a lot is, who are the people on the other end of the line? And, it's a range of folks, right? We have some people who are therapists and aspiring therapists, but we also just have some people who are, don't work in psychedelics, don't want to work in psychedelics, but really have had powerful psychedelic experiences on their own. And so when you're sharing with someone about a, an ego dissolution experience, a machine elf experience, a 5-MeO into the white light experience, like the volunteers who you're talking to have probably had very similar experiences to you, in the sense of powerful psychedelic experiences. And that just creates like such a deep trust, I think, and connection.
How do you train your support staff to kind of deal with that and all these different points of view and different types? I mean, how did you, kind of go about that?
Yeah, so we really see the time at Fireside Project as like a full year of training. So each volunteer is with us for 1 year or more. And the way that the process works is we have about 3 to 4 trainings per year. There's an upfront foundational skills training that's about 50 hours, and that consists of it consists of a 4 day training that's on Zoom, and that includes presentations, uh, demonstrations, and dyads and triads, where you actually get to practice the skills. Then there's a written test, followed by a one-on-one skills test with a supervisor, where they go through different scenarios with you. Then the aspiring volunteer observes a couple of shifts on the support line, just to hear how other volunteers are doing it, and then they're on shift. And each shift is sort of like a mini community, or it's not like a mini community, it is a mini community. There are 3 to 5 volunteers per shift, depending on how busy the shift is, as well as a paid supervisor on every shift. And so there's so much mutual support that's provided. One volunteer will get off a call, and then they can receive support from their fellow volunteers and from the supervisors, and they can discuss how the call went, what was difficult about the call for them, and that's really how I think you can kind of learn and grow is doing it, and then getting that kind of like feedback from others who have done it before.
And so, I mean, would you say that was probably the biggest benefit you guys see from the line, project, or the Fireside Project, is from just having that support there?
I think there's so many benefits that we've witnessed over the last 4 years or so. I mean, yes, for sure, access to psychedelic support. We've supported around 30,000 people so far. We did a study with UCSF and Mount Sinai that looked at our harm reduction impact. Do we avert 911 calls, ER visits, physical harms, and yes, that very very clearly we do. But there are so many other benefits as well. We've trained upwards of 600 volunteers who have all spent a full year with us, and so they go forth into the psychedelic community with really like a rich experience of and knowledge of how to support people. So I think whatever jobs they go on to, they're better at by virtue of doing this. And then there's just community, fireside volunteers become friends, develop really deep connections with each other. And we've also we haven't like mentioned diversity yet, but 60% of our current volunteers identify as being from marginalized communities, whether that's LGBTQ plus, whether it's military veterans, and BIPOC, and so forth. And so we've really, I think, helped to create a pipeline into the psychedelic field for people who may have otherwise been excluded from it. And if you're a caller, you can actually ask to process with someone sharing an aspect of your identity or lived experience. Now, of course, we don't have every identity and lived experience on every shift, but you can find out, for instance, like when a military veteran is working. And so there are these sort of like layers of peerness, if you will, right? Like one layer is having taken psychedelics, but another could be military service. And so that's a particularly powerful integration call when a vet can process with another vet related to psychedelic experiences. So I think that's another benefit that we're seeing.
Absolutely. I know Brian's a vet, and I'm autistic. So I say, it's important to be like, it does kind of affect us as people with autism a little bit differently. So it's good to have somebody I know I can be like, hey, I'm autistic. I'm freaking out a little. What can I do? And just knowing that somebody there that can do that, that's really helpful.
Yeah, and a segment of our training as well is really about, how do we provide, what does it mean to provide like culturally attuned care? How can you approach every conversation with like this sense of like profound humility, with a deep understanding that everyone's worldview is going to be different from yours. Um, and so I like to say that we sort of hold two truths. One is that callers should have the option to receive support from someone sharing their lived experience. And another truth is that everyone should be able to support everyone. And so just because the aspects of my lived experience are different from yours, that can actually, that can actually I think provide a basis for connection, or I can understand your experience by virtue of what I've experienced myself.
So, what would you say would be the one of your biggest challenges you faced in creating the support line?
So many challenges, so many challenges. The biggest one by far is philanthropy. It's savage and brutal to have to fundraise for an organization while also running that organization. It wreaks havoc on one's mental health, and it wreaks havoc on really like the ability to grow as an organization, because you just don't know from one month to the next what the philanthropic outlook is going to be. And certainly, these days with, first with like the Lycos MDMA decision, and then with, Massachusetts, who knows what the philanthropic sector is going to look like. So that's the biggest one. Another one is just getting the word out there. We provide this amazing free service, and also outreach is time consuming and expensive often if you're doing paid ads. And it just like drives me crazy when I'll hear people talking about adverse events and the risks of psychedelics, and they're not mentioning Fireside. And I'm like, this is like fretting about, getting sunburned and not mentioning that sunblock exists. So that is a point of, as you can hear from my voice, frustration for me.
Yeah, I understand that. As soon as I figured out about you guys, I threw it up on the subreddit and just stuck it as the side as on the sidebar. So free confidential support for anybody who needs it. So I think it's really important in the community to get that out. So looking ahead, what are the goals for the Fireside Project?
Yeah. So our biggest goal right now is, to become financially self-sustaining. I think to be, to really like have a stable organization that lasts for a long time, we need to become financially self-sustaining. And one of the ways that we're doing that is through this amazing coaching program that we launched a couple of months ago called Fireside Certified Psychedelic Coaching. And the idea there is, think of it as like a telehealth platform for psychedelic coaching. So you go to our website, firesideproject.org, and you pick a coach based on a photo and bio, and then you schedule a session with that coach. That session happens by Zoom, so you see who they are and they see who you are. And it's really about providing long-term support. So we do preparation, unlike on the support line, and integration, but not trip sitting. So let's say you have a big journey coming up, whether that's at a retreat, whether it's a solo underground journey, whether it's at a ketamine clinic, etc. You hire a coach, and they help to support you. So that's helping you dive into your intention. Why am I doing this? Why now? What are the obstacles that I might encounter? How might I navigate those? And then they're there to kind of wait for you at the other end of the journey and support you as you make sense of that experience and then incorporate it into your life. One of the things that makes our coaching program unique is I think we're the first coaching program that trains, hires, and then supervises our coaches. So all of our coaches start off as volunteers for a full year, going through that process that I described earlier. And then at the end of that year, they're eligible to apply to become a coach. They go through another hiring process, and then they become a paid W-2 employee, and then get weekly clinical supervision from an amazing psychologist, Jacob Hom, who's a professor at Mount Sinai. And so we're really trying to like import like the best of clinical supervision into this like non-clinical context. And sessions are $90 for 50 minutes, which is way less than therapy and actually way less than other coaching, or $150 for 80 minutes. And we've had 110 sessions so far, and it's been going great. We have 6 coaches, and I think it's really, as I was alluding to earlier, what makes psychedelics like work best is when you have someone who, when you have like long-term support, like preparation, integration. But right now in the psychedelic field, long-term support is really like only provided, if at all, almost never provided, but if at all, it's by therapists. And what I like to say is therapy is a great tool for some people, some of the time. And the continuum of care in the psychedelic field should have more options for support. I think coaching is one of them. I think like integration circles can be another.
So how often do you guys get someone that's maybe never tried psychedelics before at all and has started out with the coaching program?
That's a good question. I actually think that all of our clients so far have had previous psychedelic experience, but sometimes they've had very little psychedelic experience. The reason that we probably haven't had someone yet who hasn't tried psychedelics before is because it's just an advertising issue, right? Like it's hard, I think we're well known-ish within the kind of like psychedelic bubble, but then the people who are coming to the psychedelic field for the first time, like maybe they read Michael Pollan's book or saw his documentary, they might not be aware of Fireside or our coaching program, or even of the notion that the way psychedelics work best is when you actually prepare and go through long-term integration. Psychedelics are not like aspirin for a headache where you just take it and the depression goes away.
Right, exactly. I'd say what would that be probably the best way for like the members of the subreddit or people listening to kind of support you guys?
Yeah, I think it could be a couple of things. Like one is just share that we exist. Like let your communities know that we exist. And as to the support line, it's totally free, and it's available 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So whether that's on Reddit or posting, resharing this podcast, posting about it on social media, any communities that you're a part of, like local psychedelic societies, just telling your friends, that's a huge thing. And then, yeah, if you're really, if you've made the choice to have a psychedelic experience and you kind of want to, dive deep, I think hiring a coach is just really a wonderful way of doing that. We offer a free 20-minute consultation, so you can pick a coach and then chat with them for 20 minutes and get a feel for what might it be like to work with them, what's their vibe like, and ask them questions.
And you have an app too, right?
We do. We just actually relaunched our app, both in the Apple Store and Android Store. We think it's the first ever app that's specifically designed for people tripping. And so what that means is when you open it up, there's just 2 buttons, one that says call and one that says text. And that's basically it. There's a couple of links to our website, but we really just wanted to make it as easy as possible. It's just way easier to have an app in your phone and hit the app icon than it is to like scroll through your phone and try to find our phone number. So my advice is just download the app now. It's free. It can just sit there, and it's way easier than try to navigate the app store or your phone contact list while you're tripping.
Well, I guess before we wrap everything up, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would just say, well, one, thank you both, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for this podcast and for letting your subreddit know about us. And yeah, just check out our website, download our app. We're a nonprofit. We love supporting people tripping or integrating, and it's always an honor to support people rather than a burden. So I know it's a leap of faith, and I think we we do our best to honor the trust that our callers place in us.
Yeah. So where do we find your app again? Where do we get a hold of you and find out about Fireside Project?
Yeah, so in the Apple Store and Android, it's just Fireside Project. On the internet, it's just www.firesideproject.org. Instagram is at Fireside Project. We also have TikTok, which is at Fireside Project. So pretty easy. I also suggest, one of the questions we get a lot is how can I become a volunteer? And so sign up for our newsletter on our website. Also follow us on social media. As I said, we do about 3 to 4 trainings per year. We'll probably do one I'm thinking in January or February. So just sign up for the newsletter now, and then we always let folks know. And then once we open up applications, we do like an FAQ night where you can come and ask us questions. It's a really, really beautiful experience to support others who are tripping. And so if you work in psychedelics, or if you just love supporting fellow human beings, it's a really wonderful experience to have as a volunteer.
Awesome. It sounds great. I really appreciate you coming on here. Thank you so much for coming on. We'd love to have you back sometime, and we can have a chat again about other subjects. So
amazing. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. And so that was our interview with Joshua White from the Fireside Project.
Yes.
It was kind of interesting. If you go back and you listen to it, if you wanted to listen to it in order of how these were recorded, this would have been the first episode.
Right.
Yeah. And you can kind of tell. I mean, I was a little nervous there, but that's why I got Brian with me. I appreciate it. You're helping me there a lot. But It's great. I remember that music was Flintwick. You guys support us on Patreon, patreon.com, Divergent States. That's, hit us up. We're growing. I'm putting up stuff there every day. Brian's on there with me. Got him as a mod now. I've also set up a Discord server just for the Patreon. Thanks to Brad again, Brad Burge, H, Brian here, Psychonaut. I'm trying to think. We I think our next episode, we're going to do a best of Psychonaut 2024. We're going to go over Psychonaut's biggest posts and best posts from this last year.
Ooh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're just going to go through. Maybe we'll get some of your comments, call out some of the comments from the subreddit, read your comments on the podcast. It'll be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, I think it will be. I think it'll be great. We've got a great lineup still to come. We've got a couple episodes already recorded, and we're going to be, I think, with Wendy Tucker from the Shulgin Foundation and Rick Doblin. So, yeah, got more interviews we're going to be conducting in the future this whole month coming up. So, you guys stick around.
We're just getting started.
Right. So, yeah, again, patreon.com, Divergent States. Hit us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the fun, Blue Sky. Got all the social media up. So, hit us up on there. And you guys remember, be safe and have fun.
Yeah, catch you later.